So we're not basically speaking about Hamas fighters. We're speaking about normal civilians who are just sitting in their homes and they are targeted for the sake of being Palestinians. So that's whenever we're speaking about the misidentification of those Palestinians just because they are Palestinians. And if we also put that in context, it has been also not only in Palestine but globally. We're always arguing that technology sometimes, and especially when it's used for the predictive policing purposes, it's not accurate. So it doesn't give you accurate targets, because it gives you targets based on the data that you use to train those systems. And if your data entry is biased, because like human beings by nature are not like neutral, we're not objectives, we do have preferences. So just imagine whenever we are speaking about an occupier and occupied people, it's definitely reflecting this power imbalance whenever they are training their systems.
So hello and welcome back to Palestine Deep Dive. My name is Ahmed Al-Naouq, and today I'm joined with a very special guest, again, like always, Mona Shtaya. Mona Shtaya is a Palestinian digital rights defender working as a campaigns and a partnership manager and corporate engagement lead at Digital Actions. She's also a 2020 Migration and Technology Monitor Fellow and a non-resident scholar for the Middle East Institute in the Palestine Legal Program. Welcome, Mona. Thank you very much for joining us at Palestine Deep Dive.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. So, Mona, let's start by a recent story that you wrote for the Mondoweiss, in which you said that Israel is joining the first global treaty on artificial intelligence. So, can you please explain this to us? What is that treaty?
Yeah, sure. So last week we were surprised to see that there's a new global treaty, and this is the first one of its kind. It's called the Global AI Treaty, and it's an agreement meant to regulate AI, which is artificial intelligence, to be more responsible or for more responsible use, to uphold human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. And this is a global treaty where many of the EU countries, alongside the US, UK, are signing together. So we are speaking basically about treaty applies primarily to public sector, but also it addresses private sector risks. And as you may know, like global treaties usually has it's crucial to regulate how AI is used, and we need to ensure that the use of AI is used for the common good. However, it was surprising to see that, because we've now witnessing the misuse of AI in this ongoing genocide in Gaza Strip for 11 months, while they are misusing AI during or through their different technologies, such as the Lavender system, such as the Gospel system, the Where's Daddy system, among other systems, and the facial recognition technologies, to massively and indiscriminately targeting civilians in Gaza Strip, leaving us with death toll. Yeah, God.
We will talk a lot about gospel and lavender, but you also said in your story that um, that joining this treaty, that Israel's joining this treaty is dangerous. So my question is, why would Israel's joining a treaty that is meant to regulate AI dangerous? It should be good, not
So,
bad. What do you think?
I mean, they're not only joining the treaty, they have been sitting on the negotiations table for 2 years, participating in putting this treaty together. In the past 2 years, we've witnessed a huge a huge development and in the misuse of AI and the occupied Palestinian territory. We've seen groundbreaking investigations on the different technologies that has been weaponized to kill Palestinians in the occupied Palestinian territory. It is dangerous to have those treaties, because sometimes it's just whitewashing certain countries while they are committing war crimes against people. And unfortunately, this misuse of AI and technologies is not only and is not limited to Palestinians, because Israel has track record. They are developing those killing technologies, testing that on Palestinians as an open laboratory for them before start selling that worldwide, profiting from their apartheid system and now profiting from their ongoing genocide in Gaza Strip. So this is why it is dangerous to see Israel sitting on that negotiations table while they have been committing war crimes, killing Palestinians for decades. And like if we look into the past few years, we can see the intensity of this misuse of technology. And again, it's worth saying that we as Palestinians don't look at those technologies as our counterparts, because we recognize and we know that there is this power imbalance between Palestinians and Israel. There's an occupying state and occupied people. And that means basically that technology is not the bad actor. It is weaponized by a colonizer state to colonize other people, to oppress them, to prevent them from having a normal life, such as any other people around the world.
Do you think that there might be a slight probability that when Israel joins such a treaties, it might abide by the laws and the regulations enforced on them by these treaties?
Well, I wish it is the case. It's not the case, because, like, as soon as this ongoing genocide started, like 2 weeks later, we've started seeing Israel using the Lavender system, where they are targeting civilians in Gaza Strip, and they are allowing themselves like collateral damage to target 100 civilians to kill at least one Hamas fighter, which basically means that this is a mass destruction and massively attack for people in Gaza Strip. And I don't think it's I think we are at a stage where we should be demanding the AI to be regulated. We need to understand how different, like, what is the relationship between those private companies, states, and people who are affected by this misuse of technology. However, when a state like Israel is sitting on the negotiation table, is signing or joining this global treaty, while they are committing war crimes and genocide in Gaza Strip and in the occupied Palestinian territory, then we're not basically speaking about any benefits of those treaties, but whitewashing those war crimes.
Yeah.
That said, we need to raise our serious questions about the role of the international community in holding Israel accountable, and how they are allowing Israel to sit on that table and join this treaty while they are basically using those technologies to kill Palestinians.
Yeah. So, in the same story that you wrote for Mondoweiss, you said since the beginning of this genocide, Israel has been weaponizing AI and advanced technologies to carry out the massive and indiscriminate killing of civilians. Can you please explain this to us a little bit more? How did Israel weaponize AI and technology to kill civilians? And maybe you could explain to us what the lavender and gospel are, please.
Yeah, of course. So I know many people who might be watching this video, they would think, they are misusing AI only on lavender and the
Mm.
gospel, because we are going to speak about that. But like, just to put things into context, AI has been weaponized for years. It is part of the facial recognition technology that has been used, tested on Palestinians before start selling that worldwide. Few years ago, Microsoft was going to invest $75 million in Nvision, which is an Israeli company, to develop their facial recognition techniques, test that on Palestinians before start selling that worldwide to profit from that. That's our starting point. They divested because of a huge international campaign on Microsoft to divest this investment. However, it didn't stop there. It continued, and there is already like facial recognition technologies. We can see that while we are passing through the heavily loaded military checkpoints in the West Bank. And now we can see that also the deployment of the facial recognition cameras in Gaza Strip. The New York Times investigation, when they were misidentifying civilians in Gaza Strip as Hamas fighters or affiliated to Hamas, was also part of the predictive policing and the misuse of the facial recognition technology against civilians in Gaza Strip. That's where we can start, just to put this into context. Then we can speak a little bit about like Lavender and the Gospel, which are like both of them are new technologies that Israel has developed during this ongoing genocide. And they basically are targeting, like we can maybe start speaking a bit about Lavender. It is like a dark centerpiece that has been used to target civilians in Gaza Strip. They are generating killing lists through this system, and they usually, those killing lists, it might include some low ranking members of Hamas and the PIJ, and they basically are flagging tens of thousands of people that should be killed. Only in the few in the few early in the early few weeks of this ongoing genocide, this system has flagged up to 37K Palestinians and their homes to be bombed. And again, like if we look at the death toll in Gaza Strip, we can see that this identification and flagging for those killing lists are just like to massively killing Palestinians, and it's not necessary to target Hamas people or PIJ people. That's the Lavender system. However, with the Gospel, it's a difference. Yeah, sorry,
The
go ahead.
danger with that, I just can't help but think that if they identified 37,000 Palestinians or 37,000 Hamas members or PIG members or whatever, they will not target them only, they will target them and their entire families. So we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people who might be affected by this monstrous lavender system. And at the same time, we're
Exactly.
having a treaty where people like want to make Israel normal, like a normal country, and have a treaties with it. It is very, very dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, it is dangerous because, yeah, as you said, like the 37K people that were flagged by the system, we can see the results of this flagging now when we see when we look at over 2 million Palestinians have been forcibly displaced several times out of their homes in Gaza Strip. We've also seen the targeting of the refugees camps in Gaza Strip. We've also seen the targeting of the tents for people who are displaced from their homes in Gaza Strip. So we're not basically speaking about precise targeting for Hamas members, but rather we're speaking about targeting for Palestinians, killing Palestinians, displacing Palestinians. And again, if we look at the death toll, we can see, again, it's not just to speak about children and women, but like most of their targets have been proved that they are children and women in Gaza Strip. So we're not basically speaking about Hamas fighters. We're speaking about normal civilians who are just sitting in their homes, and they are targeted for the sake of being Palestinians. So that's whenever we're speaking about the misidentification of those Palestinians just because they are Palestinians. And if we also put that in context, it has been also not only in Palestine but globally. We're always arguing that technologies sometimes, and especially when it's used for the predictive policing purposes, it's not accurate. So it doesn't give you accurate targets, because it gives you targets based on the data that you use to train those systems. And if your data entry is biased, because like human beings by nature are not like neutral, we're not objectives, we do have preferences. So just imagine whenever we are speaking about and occupier and occupied people, it's definitely reflecting this power imbalance whenever they are training their systems. So that could explain why we are reaching here today, if that makes sense.
Yes, and there is another example of that. What happened yesterday in Lebanon when they detonated 3,000 devices that killed and injured thousands, like it killed 8 people and injured 3,000 people or even more. And the people who were injured are not all Hezbollah militants. Some people were in a pharmacy, some people were in a store, some passersby, some children were injured because of this system. So what does that tell you?
Again, here we speak about how this is basically used to massively target civilians. We're not basically speaking only about targeting Hezbollah. We've seen like many people who were targeted, they were not. So we are again, if we want to question the whole misuse of technology in this ongoing genocide in Palestine, but also like the yesterday's operation in Lebanon, we can't look at that like with like neutrally or objectively just to say that they are targeting Hezbollah or Hamas. They, at the end of the day, those people were walking in the streets, in the markets, they were in their homes, sitting with their families. Some of them might be at a hospital or at a school or wherever. So they are basically causing harm among civilians. They are not precisely targeting Hezbollah members. And that could lead us to speak about their their intentions and just like continuing what they've started, not exactly just targeting Hamas fighters or Hezbollah people or whatever they claim to target.
Yeah. And then we talked a little bit about Lavender and Gospel and all of these AI technologies and systems that were used against the Palestinians before the 7th of October for many years and now. And all of that is not a secret. It has been written about extensively, especially during this genocide. So my question to you is, what should the international bodies that regulate AI do now that Israel is part of these treaties? They should pressure, revoke, expel, or welcome Israel. What should they do?
Well, at this point, we need to think about, like, again, like allowing them to join as or raise a serious question why they are allowed to join such a global treaty, why they are misusing or using the AI technology to commit war crimes. That's our starting point. And then we need to regulate that, but also to hold those countries into account. So, if Israel is already part of this treaty and they participated in the negotiations and sitting or putting those treaties material together, then now they need to be held accountable by the other members, and they need to revisit those materials where they were speaking about using AI for common good, which is in contradicts what Israel has been weaponizing AI for. And as a result of that, they need to hold them accountable, and they need to think about how they can regulate also the relationship with the companies. Because again, whenever we started this conversation, we spoke about this treaty and how it's basically used for public sector in those countries, but we haven't spoken about the private companies. And in a surveillance state like Israel, we are basically speaking about an infinite loop between the state, its private sector, especially the sector that develop and test surveillance technologies and other military technologies on Palestinians, and then how this is feeding into the whole system of apartheid system, the automation of the apartheid. And as a result of that, we need to regulate this relationship. And later on, we need also to think about the relationship between those states and the international companies, because we're not only today speaking about the Israeli companies, we're also speaking about international companies that are facilitating the genocidal narrative online, allowing the Israeli officials and the Israeli people, extremists, to put out their incitement, hate speech, violent speech, and genocidal narrative against Palestinians on the tech platforms without monitoring that. And some of them even allowed advertisements that is inciting violence against Palestinians, which at the end of the day contribute to label Palestinians, stereotype us, and normalize anti-Palestinian racism.
Mona Shtaya, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Ahmed, for having me.
As Israel attempts to erase the Palestinian people under the cover of darkness, targeting journalists and censoring the press, we must rise from the ashes. At Palestine Deep Dive, we are building a multimedia space where our voices, the Palestinian voices, are always front and center. And right now, we just need 3,000 more of you to join our regular supporters and back our work so we can rapidly expand our output. Help us build the future of journalism. Become a supporter at PalestineDeepDive.com/support. This is 100% independent media powered by you.